For me, growing up, my connection to Judaism was not a religious connection, but a ethnic connection and a sort of an ethno-nationalist connection in terms of Israel was the place that I would someday have to go when, you know, the Nazis came back to power. It was just kind of like, you know, being told a lot that like one day this, you know, disaster is going to befall the Jewish people in America and we're all going to get to go to Israel. And so Zionism was just kind of supplanted any kind of religious education for me. It was just kind of part of it. It was just like, you know, you were, it's funny because like the idea of the dual loyalty trope is always like trotted out. And I always kind of felt like, you know, well, you know, we're all Israeli. Like that was kind of like the thing. And it wasn't until, you know, I kind of started growing up and went to college and that I started kind of pushing back on this idea of it. And then kind of like started getting a little bit creeped out by the obsession with blood as it relates to Jewish people, thinking that of that as kind of like a sort of race science Nazi connection. You know, this kind of like ethnic right that we have as Jews to, you know, have this land. And I started kind of like looking at all of the, I mean, here's the thing, when you grow up in, you know, around a lot of Jews, which most people don't, you know them to, you know, be all kinds of people. And one of the types of people is I knew a lot of fucking racists. I knew a lot of people were racist as shit. They were just white Americans, essentially, a lot of them. And that included, you know, the kind of like inter-Jewish racism that you would see, you know, between white Jews and Jews of color. And you would see that, you know, we're not immune from being kind of, you know, assholes. We're just people, right? And so once I started kind of like being deprogrammed, and this was mostly through, you know, it's nothing special at first. It was just kind of like going to college and just being like, oh, damn, this seems like it's fucked up over there. But I still kind of held on to the idea of like, you know, well, you know, everyone should just vote better. You know, the idea of like, if everyone just like voted for the good guy, then, you know, then we could do a 2-state solution. Totally normal, you know, thing to me, this idea of like, yeah, no, just we should separate the ethnicities. And then it wasn't until Birthright, I went on Birthright in 2012, when I realized how much the Zionist project relied on young American Jews in order to push this this agenda.
Birthright is a program that's for Jews who have never been to Israel at least you can still go if you've been with your family, but they've never been like on their own to Israel, and it's a fully paid for trip.
So all sorts of different trips, right? There's some of the Taglit trips that's Birthright. Some of the Birthright trips are religious. Some of them are secular. Mine was mixed Jews for the most part. And mixed non-bar mitzvah Jews.
Right.
And
but
so,
you can do one for non-Jews too? Like
I assume so. I mean, they're selling you a timeshare essentially. Yeah. And I think like with the, you know, there's got to be Christian Zionist groups. There's got to be all sorts, right? Because it's a sales tool.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it was all of these like, you know, non-bar mitzvah Jews. And it was like literally I had my bar mitzvah in Israel when one of the tour guides just was like, "You're a man now," and gave us all like Hebrew names. And I was like, I'm pretty sure it doesn't work like that. When I went there, I realized how important this trip was, not for me, but for them. I realized that it was this like really, you know, it was a hard sales tactic. It was like they were trying to make sure that we went back and told people what we saw there, which was, you know, basically what we saw was Jewish Disneyland, in which like I went to a country in which they were singing songs that I sang at like Jewish day camp. And I was like, Well, this is bullshit. No fucking way. This is a whole nother country. You're telling me you made a whole country out of fucking day camp? Nuh-uh. I smell, this is a red flag. And it was like on the third night of it, the craziest shit was that there was a giant mega event, a mega birthright event, all the birthright trips in an arena. And they had all these like speakers and rappers and whatnot. The craziest thing was the headlining speaker was Benjamin Netanyahu. Literally while he was prime minister, he took time out of his schedule to come talk to us, tell us that we actually belonged to Israel, that was our home, and then told us to he's, you know, number one, he wanted us to make Aliyah, but if we didn't do that, what he wanted was for us to be his own personal Hasbara army. And he wanted us to go and he's like, tell people what you saw here. And then he proceeded to tell us what we saw there. You know, you saw a land where, you know, women can, you know, work at jobs, and Arabs are happy all the time, and tell them there is no wall, there is no occupation, sleep. It was very, I mean, it was just so clearly this propaganda trip, but I didn't know that even in just going to this thing, that I was number one going to be so affected by it, because I'll admit, I left being like, you know, it is like kind of complicated. But I also left with this like gross feeling of like I am basically being told, you know, as I think every Jewish kid is told, you know, by family and whatnot, that it is our responsibility to stop the liars from spreading lies about Israel. And just kind of this gross feeling of like feeling like I was a tool for this ongoing, you know, the ongoing Zionist project, the, you know, Greater Israel Project even. And yeah, and then it just came to a point where I was like, nah, fuck this. This is all bullshit and wrong, and it's used to justify some of the most atrocious behavior, and it is deeply rooted in anti-Semitism. And you know, as someone who does not like anti-Semitism, I realized that this was a project that was almost relied on the existence and perpetuation of it in order to function. And I was like, this kind of makes this the biggest anti-Semitic enterprise in my lifetime.